Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and we are actually going back a little bit in time to the Season 25 Division P playoff to see a fantastic game between RubiChess and Komodo Dragon. I noticed it at the time. It was one of those games where I thought I really have no idea what's going on, and I'm not sure I know much more, to be honest, having analysed it, but anyway, it's definitely worth watching, and let's have a look at it here. So how did the opening go? Well, the opening was from Jeroen as always, and it was a Czech Benoni. And well, the Czech Benoni, that's something synonymous with something dodgy in the English chess scene. If you say something's Czech or Czech Benoni, it means it's not a very good move. Yeah, the reason for that, well, there are a lot of English players who play the Czech Benoni. William Hartston was the first one, and apparently he taught his then wife, Jana Hartston, the opening. She later married Tony Miles, and apparently she taught him the opening. Tony always used to say that he only played the Czech Benoni once every 5 years, because that's how long it took him to forget how bad it was. It's actually quite an interesting opening. I mean, the pawn structures are, you know, very typical King's Indian. It's just that setting up the pawn structure so early gives White an awful lot of opportunities to put his pieces ideally for that structure. It's very much like the Stonewall Dutch, actually. You know, playing the Stonewall Dutch immediately. I always found, you know, that White's got some unpleasant little move orders in the opening to get you into a bad version, but playing the Stonewall Dutch structure, you know, from other openings like the Catalan or the Queen's Indian, that's often a very good idea. So it's, you know, quite similar here. What Jeroen gave for the book was Knight BD7, Knight G2, actually quite an interesting system for White, looking to play the Knight to G3. If Black just castles straight away, then actually Black could be in some trouble. I've actually had this as Black myself. I experimented also as an English player with the Czech Benoni, and yeah, this Knight E2 to G3 system was quite nasty, and I seem to remember that one of those creative players, I think it was Moskalenko, he did an article on it recently, just saying how strong it was. But H5 is the end of book move, and actually I think that's a pretty decent move for the engines to play with. Obviously, the idea of H5, looking to play H4, gaining space on the king side, preventing the knight from coming to G3. I mean, this opening was played a number of times at the TCEC. I actually enjoyed that part of Division P and Division P playoff very, very much. You know, Jeroen gave some a small set of openings to the engines, and then they all tried it out. And what was surprising was that they didn't all play the same, and you actually got a very, very nice, deep idea about the openings. And I'm actually currently analysing a Dragon Leela game in the Slav, Knight A6. Which I thought also was fascinating, and again you saw, you know, all the engines trying out slightly different variants of the opening. It's very, very interesting. So H4 played, and yeah, for playing these Czech Benoni positions with H4, H5 included, I always refer people to one of my games, which is my game against Guy West from the 1998 Elista Olympiad, which I think is it's an absolutely brilliant model game for you know, how to play with White against yeah, H5 in the Czech Benoni. But there we are. I'm feeling a little bit like an old guy here, just telling everyone about my games. Yeah, I do think that's a very nice idea. So but anyway, G6 was played by Komodo Dragon. And yeah, the idea eventually is to play something like bishop h6 and exchange off the dark squared bishops. Obviously, with the pawns on dark squares, exchanging off the dark squared bishop is quite tempting. I mean, it's always one of those things in the King's Indian. I mean, you know, if you exchange off the dark squared bishops, that's good position in general, but it can make your position just a little bit flat. If you keep the dark squared bishop, then probably for most of the game, it's going to be behind a pawn chain. But just imagine if you ever manage to open up the position, if white plays a move like f4, or if you manage to get an f5, the pawn moves away and you get an e4, then this bishop suddenly explodes in power, and that sort of adds an incredible impetus to your position. So it's one of those things that you can either go for short-term, exchange off the bishop, say, well, at least I don't have a bad piece, but maybe you're going to be lacking in activity later, or you take the risk, accept a passive piece for most of the game, the one that will burst free if ever you manage to clear the centre. But okay, bishop g5. God, I've got flights of fancy today, haven't I? So bishop g5, played by Ruby, and the idea I think is that if you play something like bishop h6, none of the engines particularly wanted to. Well, if you do it now, then we'll take, and that actually stops you from castling kingside. Slightly misplaces the rook on h6. Another idea of putting the bishop on g5, we see it a few times as well, is that after bishop h6 you can maybe allow black to take on g5. The pawn takes back on g5, and then that makes it harder for black to get an f5, because we can take on passant and just avoid any pressure on the white centre. Those sort of ideas are possible too. So bishop e7 was played by Dragon. g3, and now a funny little episode happens. It's happened a number of times with Jeroen's openings, that Jeroen has sort of given black knight f6 and white knight e2, or sometimes given black an early knight e7, and then the engines just seem to, just like in a chess 960 position, they seem to spend some time just repairing the position in their eyes. It's exactly what Dragon and Ruby do, because after g3, knight g8 is played by Dragon, bishop d2, and now bishop f8. So Dragon says, well, I want to go bishop h6, and I want to recapture on h6 with a knight. So let's undo a few of Jeroen's moves. And then Ruby plays knight g1, saying, well, I didn't want my knight on e2, I want my knight to be on f3 so that it can come to g5 later. It's quite... so, I mean, we've played 11 moves now. It looks like we've only played about 6 or 7. But okay, Komodo Dragon plays bishop h6. And now white's got to come up with a plan. So what Ruby did was play the move f3, which is, pretty reasonable. I mean, basically, this knight is going to come to h3 at some stage, and probably into to g5. Obviously, when you've played h4 and h5, this knight's particularly well placed on g5, because you can't chase it away because of knight e6. Another idea for white would also be to exchange off the light squared bishops first and then move the knight in. I was quite surprised in a number of Stockfish games. Stockfish was actually just exchanging off both bishops, so allowing the exchange of dark squared bishops like this, then exchanging its own light squared bishops, and then just playing the position. And actually scoring very heavily like that, which I've got to get my head around that, because wasn't quite what I was expecting, I have to say. But yeah, I mean, white's got a nice space advantage whatever happens. What Dragon starts doing here, though, is Dragon starts playing really interestingly, and I'm not sure whether it's good what Dragon does, but in the game it certainly has an effect, and it seems to sort of provoke Ruby into doing something that that looks very, very dangerous, but actually seems to be okay for black in the long run. But don't ask me how. It's Dragon plays the move queen f6, which looks incredibly odd and rather strange. Putting the queen in the way of the knight there. The idea is simply, to defend the pawn on d6, and Dragon has got some ideas about some counterplay on the king side, but they only really happen when you play like Ruby does, which was kind of only of Dragon's second or third line. So it's really, really weird. But I suppose it's also one of those things that, in a closed position like this with the centre closed, black does have some leeway in how to place the pieces. From a tempo perspective, looking at all of white's options, it would be probably better to put the queen on e7 directly rather than the queen on f6. But well, this works beautifully for Dragon, so who am I to complain? So, I mean, one of the points is that if you go knight h3, then black can go bishop d2, and white's forced to go king d2 because the queen's attacking the pawn. in all fairness, this is not so bad. I mean, you're sort of castling artificially, right? So who really cares that the king is forced to move like that? But I guess that this is why Ruby played the move bishop e2, just to be able to play knight h3 and recapture on d2 with maximum efficiency. So here now, Komodo Dragon played another move that really shocked me somehow. Knight f8. Where is that knight going? You know, yeah, really quite surprised. But the idea is actually looking for bishop d7. Simply you're going to develop like that. And you might even castle queenside at the end. You know, if white castles queenside, black might castle queenside as well. And otherwise, yeah, you're just going to develop. I mean, this knight can always come out to h7 if you need to move the king later. Feels really strange, you know, but it's not necessarily bad. But somehow this, well, definitely slightly eccentric form of development provokes Ruby into playing a move that I thought looked really strong. It's the move b4. And what's the idea of that? Well, the idea is if takes, I'm going knight b5 here. Takes, and well, I'm threatening this this knight c7 check. If you go king d8, I go queen b4, and well, you're in real trouble. I mean, this pawn is completely cooked. So, I mean, yeah, b4 looks really strong, but Dragon played an amazing move. He simply played the move knight d7, so the knight's coming back. And the idea is there that, well, if b takes c5, we're just going to go knight takes c5. And, well, nothing wrong, right? I mean, you've got a nice dark squared outpost. You're going to be swapping off the dark squared bishops. Black's absolutely fine. Wasted time on knight f8, knight d7 to c5. But again, you know, in a block position, it doesn't make so much difference. I mean, the incredible thing is that, you know, black can try and play knight b5, but because the queen on f6 is protecting the pawn on d6, you just sidestep with king f8. We'll see this later in the game. And yeah, knight c7 is just an empty shot. So, and we've still got the idea of taking on d2 and then putting our knight on c5. It's really amazing. I think, you know, a more graphic demonstration of, you know, that in a, you know, that truism that in a closed position you you don't, you know, you can actually afford to waste time. Well, I think that this one is absolutely clear. But the interesting thing now was that Ruby played a3, and it sort of looks like, you know, when you look at it, you sort of say, well, you know, we had this position, and now because of the way that Dragon has played, b4, knight d7, a3, we've got the same position, but Ruby's just expanded on the queen side with a3 and b4. Those are moves that white always wants to play in these structures. You know, get your queen side play moving. So yeah, Dragon's just lost a couple of tempi for no good. Only now Dragon comes out with its idea, which is to play g5. g5, that's a hell of a move, you've got to say. But it's, you know, it's all about the dark squares, really. Now the intriguing thing is that, you know, if I tried to play g5 in this position, then white just plays takes and then plays this move f4, and if e takes f4, I can just play queen c1 here and then take on f4 here, and there's no problems at all for white because his queenside dark squares are completely solid, no problem at all. However, after this these couple of extra moves, b4, knight d7, a3, g5 takes, well, takes, or knight b5 or whatever, you know, these queenside dark squares are quite weak. If this e takes f4 ever happens, f4, e takes f4, the queen suddenly attacking a rook, it's attacking an unprotected knight. I mean, those two moves, which should be strong for white, which should be the moves that white wants to play in this position, are going to turn out to be tactical weaknesses, and that's going to make all this counterplay work for Dragon. It's a hell of an idea. It really is an amazing idea. Wouldn't have dreamt that any of this was possible, you know, which is and still doubting somehow. But you know, I played loads and loads of games between Leela and Stockfish on this, and yeah, you know, this position, of course, it's better for white, but there was no point in the game where you know, where Stockfish really started winning lots of games. There's maybe one moment where white might have tried something different, but that's it, and it's not a clear point either. I need a lot more analysis to try and you know, prove something. So it's quite incredible. I mean, it might just be one of those things where you provoke white into doing something, and that just turns out to be just okay for you. But it's very, very close. So after g5, Ruby played knight b5. Why not? Attacking this one and threatening knight c7, and also getting out of any possible attack by the queen once the this diagonal gets opened. King f8, and now h takes g5. Bishop g5, f4, and bishop h6. So yeah, I was wondering about e takes f4 here, but actually white can even play knight f3 in this position, and now you see the nice point of having played knight b5. White plays the move bishop c3, and after knight e5, b takes c5. I mean, this is still an absolutely crazy position. You know, white sort of nibbling away at black centre by through the queen side, and black sort of munching away the king side with f takes g3. I mean, this is just bananas, really. So these were my games: g2, rook g1, takes, queen f4, rook takes g2, and white was a lot better. I mean, Leela beat Stockfish from this game, and well, my hardware's not fantastic for Leela. It's not a very good balance. So and also my version of Leela's a little bit old. So yeah, you know, if Leela beats Stockfish from these positions, then it's normally pretty good. But still a pretty crazy position, I have to say. Does remind me of this bishop takes h8 of I had something similar against Julian Hodgson once, English grandmaster, very creative, and when I played bishop h8 he said, well, I was really happy when you took that rook because it meant I didn't have to develop it. So which was I got crushed in that game. It was a very nice game from him. But I mean, this is still looking quite a little bit ropey somehow with checks and all that sort of stuff, but yeah, it's clear that white's quite a bit better. So that's quite nice. But just bishop h6 played here. And now, yeah, this is one of the moments where Stockfish might sort of have had an idea of an improvement, but it wasn't very clear at all. You could try bishop c3, just pinning this pawn. But now we go a6, and this knight is a bit short of squares. Knight c7, rook a7, knight f3, and now b5. Boom! What's the point of that? We're going after the knight there, which is trapped. So f takes e5, queen g7, not the retreat you kind of expect, but the queen's actually pinning the pawn to the bishop on c3, and also sneakily attacking the pawn on g3 as well. We go knight e6, takes, queen d6 check is coming, queen g3 check, knight df6. What a move! We're looking for stuff like bishop e3, like bishop e6 as well, and bishop h3, bishop e1, queen f4, ef6, knight f6, bc5. Bishop e6, king f7, and well, I mean, it just keeps on, the position just keeps on going. Rook h4, knight g4, rook h5, just totally bananas position, really. But yeah, it seemed to be better for white, but not exactly winning. But that was definitely an interesting idea. But I mean, Ruby's move looks very nice here, just knight f3. And then this one is a total shocker, just h4. You're just this h-pawn is pretty much useless, so you're just sort of using it to try and, you know, draw the black pieces or the white pieces where you can attack them, basically. So, but Ruby didn't react like that. Didn't take the pawn h4. Ruby reacted with g4. And this is a very nice move as well, looking to play the move g5, just chasing the queen away from f6. So you can take on d6. It's amazing how you know, both sides here fighting with their king in the centre and the pawns moving forwards, and yeah, somehow the major piece is not yet involved. So bishop f4 takes, and then e takes f4. If you go queen f4, we go knight d6. which is a little bit unpleasant for black. I mean, you can check, but the king's always got some escapes here, and well, this knight's getting nicely active. So Dragon preferred to punch open a hole in the centre with e takes f4 and get the queen active that way. We've got queen c3s, queen b2s, the rook on a1 is hanging as well. So g5 was played by Ruby, and now queen g7, and now knight d6. So, I mean, look at this position. Can you make any sense of it at all? I certainly can't. You know, this looks it kind of looks appalling for black, doesn't it? But this queen is very, very annoying, you know, sort of attacking from afar. And, well, black's pieces do have some squares now. And, you know, although the black king looks rubbish, you know, it's not close to being attacked at all. And, you know, when you're looking at the pieces in the opponent's territory, there's only one knight on d6. And, well, knight e5 is what Komodo Dragon came out, activating this bishop. B takes c5, and now knight e7. So, yeah, what is this position? Well, I mean, the big problem for me, at any rate, you know, with this position is, what on earth should I be doing here as white? I haven't really got much clue. You know, should I be going after the b7 pawn? Should I be, I don't know, trying to exchange off queens? Should I be trying to target something like the f4 pawn? Well, what Ruby does is go rook b1, and this is a very sensible move in general. I mean, we're attacking b7. We might get in there, although, you know, this doesn't really feel like a great move. It doesn't feel like a great achievement. But the key point is you're getting out of the queen attack, so that means that this queen can be active. And, you know, you can think of going after this f4 pawn. Well, h3 was played by Dragon, which is very nice, and well, I think probably prize for most unexpected reaction occurred in Stockfish and Leela games, because well, Ruby played queen b3, which is you know, quite sensible as well. Just getting the queen active, looking at b7, yeah, protecting the knight. You know, it's a good general move, but both Stockfish and Leela in my games wanted to play castles. I mean, I have no idea how good this is really. I mean, obviously I'm playing on weaker hardware than the TCEC. I'd need to give this a long try out to see whether it's good. But after bishop h3 attacking the rook, the idea was to go queen d4, just sack the exchange. I mean, you're really just trying to yeah, just concentrate the position, get rid of any black pieces that are vaguely active, and then just hope that, you know, you'll capture a b pawn, you'll have a huge mass of pawns. I think that bishop f1, I think knight takes c5 was the problem. We've got knight d7 checks coming in, and knight f6. You know, so f6 was happening, then rook fd1, b6 undermining, takes. Knight f5. These were all Leela Stockfish games. Loads of draws in this position. Knight g4. I think the king's feeling really worried. But bishop f1, fg, queen takes b6, rook h6 coming in, and yeah, I don't know. Anything's happening here. I just can't imagine what's you know, what the objective assessment of this is. But yeah, this was another possibility. Totally crazy. Ruby's queen b3 looks quite sensible in comparison. But takes and queen g5 was played. So yeah, I mean, if we look at the material's even, and black's got quite a few nice little ideas here. So what Ruby did, Ruby took the opportunity here just to get rid of that h-pawn. Takes and takes. But we've got queen g1 check now, and because the rook on b1 is undefended, you have to go bishop f1. And yeah, again, you know, it's just you're looking at this position, you know, after 31 moves, you're thinking, you know, the king's still on e1, the bishop's on f1, king on f8. You know, the white pawns seem to have moved forward there without consulting with the white major pieces somehow. You know, it's but yeah, I mean, white's got a lot of threats. d6 is there, rook takes b7 is there as well. So black plays rook e8, and now the move, another move that really shocked me. Yeah, the problem is if rook b7, we're going knight g6, and you know, there's quite a nice bit of attacking potential here somehow. So Ruby played the move e5. I mean, it's just incredible. Those pawns are just you know, running away from the white king. But the idea is that you can play something like e6, and yeah, and shield your king in that way. And of course, you know, you're going to try and open the black king as well. And moves like rook b7 will be really, really dangerous. So b6 was played by Komodo Dragon just to stop the rook from coming into b7 there. But amazing, you've got time for all these moves. King d2 played, just getting out of the pin. B takes c5 and queen h6 check. And well, I mean, black's got to watch out here. Moves like king g8. I think we've just got bishop d3 here, and you know, protected there, and threatening the old check, king h8, bishop g6 checkmate idea. So queen g7 was played, queen d6, and now queen g6. And this is a slightly surprising move here, but we're attacking the rook on b1 and threatening to swap off the queens there. So actually, black can't avoid swapping off queens. Takes, and knight g6. And, well, I mean, this is still... I mean, if you ask me what is this position, I'd probably guess, you know, that black should probably have enough here, because we can get rid of this pawn, and this pawn looks a little bit like a runner. But yeah, this was another one of those examples where you sort of, you know, the draw rule kicks in here. Bishop f1, rook d6, and you sort of say, oh, draw agreed, you know. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about that one. I mean, what on earth is going on here? So it's quite nice then to play, you know, the engines out from this position. But actually, you know, the engines were agreeing draws, you know, very, very quickly, you know, from this position. For them, it's clearly equal. But I don't know. I mean, this position where there's pawns on both sides. White's got the bishop versus knight, and black's got double pawns, and I've got connected passed pawns, and a slightly more active king. And kind of a slightly more active rook, really. You know, it can go to all sorts of places. Yeah, I'd be sort of assessing this as, you know, slight to clear advantage for white, you know, if I was being conservative. So, yeah, amazing that the engines just feel that this is a draw. But let's have a look at how Leela saw this. I think, was this the Leela PV that I'm going to show you? Yes, it is, actually. So, rook b5. Played. So the one little problem here is it's not easy to get these pawns moving. Obviously, when you go c5, you go rook d5. If I go bishop g2, then I'm no longer protecting the pawn. I can also be hit by f3. It sort of turns out that this pawn is quite fast, and this rook is quite annoying for black. So king e7, king c3. Now actually this move f5, which caught me by surprise. Yeah, black just yeah, ready to move this pawn. He's going to try and get the knight out, win the bishop for a pawn, and then black's Leela's already getting the other pawn ready to move through. Not obvious though. a4, f3, king d4, king f6, rook b2, rook d8. So now trying to get the rook active somehow. Might come through h8 to h4. Rook c2. Yeah, Leela using some tactics here to drive the king away. King f3 allows knight d4. King f2, knight d4, rook c3, and now rook b8. So getting the rook active there. But yeah, I mean, I hope you can see this is it's not sort of obvious or clear. It's clear you have to get the f pawn moving, you have to get the rook active, and you can harass the white king at the same time. The mechanics of it would be costing me a lot of time. King e5, c6, f4 check, king d3, rook b1. This is all Leela's PV, so might be not completely accurate. But rook d1 check and knight f5, that's the key point. c8 queen allows knight d6 check. King c5, knight d6, bishop a6, f2. And, well, you sort of get an idea of what's going to happen here. You know, we're going to swap off the rook for the queen. We're going to swap the f pawn for the rook, and well, white's going to get the a pawn, but I'm going to be able to stop it with my knight, and a draw. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those endings that, you know, just look at it intuitively. If I had to look at it from a distance, you know, this sort of ending, and just sort of say, well, okay, you know, I've got to make an assessment. I can't calculate this. I'd be assessing this as, you know, super nice for white somehow. And whereas for the engines, it's just 0, 0, 0. I mean, it is really the question about how much you believe in black's activity. And well, once you start to look through it, you start to see, yeah, difficult to advance those pawns. And yeah, actually surprisingly easy to activate the black pieces, but yeah, not easy from afar, I have to say. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed it. I do apologise for just stepping away from the Sufi there, but it was just a game that I really loved. That kind of confused me and still confuses me. You know, after seeing it, I'm not quite sure why what Dragon did actually worked, but it most certainly did. I think, you know, I don't think any other engine got this much counterplay on the black side of the Czech Benonis. They were all basically suffering like crazy. Well, you know, that's why this one you know, sort of sprang out for me, because you know, black's having a huge amount of fun here. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. If you like the video, give a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my new book, Silicon Road to Chess Improvement and Reengineering the Chess Classics. At the moment, Jeroen's using lots of my openings or positions from there, or things that he's seen in variations. And yeah, I mean, it's a lovely book anyway, and certainly, you know, a number of those positions is really adding something special, I think. Very nice to see, you know, strong engines taking on positions from, you know, from human games that human grandmasters thought were strong. You know, it really adds a lot, I think, to understanding, which was, you know, one of the inspirations for doing this Reengineering the Classics. Oh, I'm watching the current Stockfish Leela. This is game 52, and it's not looking good, I'm afraid, for Leela. Getting ground down, shuffled to oblivion. But the next game, game 50. Was it 53? I'm really looking forward to, because if it's the game I think it is, then it should be absolutely fantastic. So there we are. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Keep the comments coming. Love seeing them, even if I'm a little bit slow to answering at the moment. There's so much stuff going on at work at the moment. And otherwise, you know, thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you at the next video. Thanks for watching.